Care Bear here to share with you a kiddo panda set. I have been busy knitting for the holidays and for the fall. We have a number of family members that I knit for, so I get started early. So let me share with you what I've included in this toddler set for a Christmas gift. I found this pattern on Instagram and bought it off of Marte's website. I just fell in love with this little panda. I love the simplicity of this pattern, and she has it also on little slippers. And I'm thinking on a hat. I can't remember. I just bought the sweater pattern, and the sweater pattern has two patterns, one with a hood and one that's just a crew neck with the buttons in the front. And the pattern is for 1-year-old to a 6-year-old. So I have a number of little toddlers in our world, and I'll be able to use this pattern over and over again for both the little males and little females in our world. So let me tell you what this pattern calls for. It's DK weight yarn, a US 6 and a US 4. You're using the US 4 on the ribbing, which is a 3.5 millimeter, and 4 millimeter for the body. I knit this pattern for a 2-year-old. As I said, it goes from a 1 to 6-year-old, and I'm just looking at my notes as I go through this. With the hood and DK weight yarn, using a 4 millimeter needle, it took 180 grams of yarn. And the yarn that I used is, I've not used this before. It is a cotton corner yarn, and it is part acrylic and part cotton, 60 cotton and 40% acrylic. And this is the first time I've used it, and I've washed it. It seems to be okay. And the reason I use a cotton acrylic blend, I'm not really a fan of acrylic yarns, but I try to make it really easy for the family members who are washing the items for the kiddos. And so that's why I choose that yarn. So let me tell you a little bit about the construction of this sweater. It is a bottom up knit. You start with a very, very tiny ribbing, and it is a twisted rib. Knit one, purl one, and it's a twist knitting into the back of the knit, and it's a very tiny ribbing, and then you move into the body with a 4 millimeter needle, and you're knitting in the round. You're going in the round all the way up until the underarms, and then you separate for the front and the back. The front is knit together until you get to the split for the button band, and then you finish the left and the right hand, which are mirrored images. And then you go up to the shoulders. You can put the shoulders on, you can cast off, they give you that option, or you can put them on hold, and then you pick up in the back from the underarm and you knit back and forth until you come to the very top, and then you can either cast off and sew the back and the front together. What I did was I Kitchener stitched the back and the front together. I'm not really good at mattress stitch. I'm way better at Kitchener stitch. So I have Kitchener stitched the shoulders together, and that is a way better process for me. Then once you've done the front and the back, you then pick up at the edge for the sleeves and you knit in the round. I use DPNs. The sleeves are tapered, and you taper the sleeves right down to the cuff. Again, you switch to 3.5 millimeter needles, and you're doing a twisted rib, which is really, really tiny. Then you pick up for the hood using picking up a number of stitches that are still in the back. you go down the slant in the front, and you go back and forth knitting the hood and increasing the hood at the center section here. Once you get to a certain height in the hood, you cast off and then you sew it together at the top. I didn't cast off, I put them on needles and I Kitchener stitched down the top of the hood. Once you have done that, you pick up from down here at the button split and all the way around the hood and on the angle here as well. And you're doing a tiny twisted rib and you are making the holes for the buttonholes for that button section. And that's the hooded panda knit by Marte, and I love it. I think it's going to be really, really cute. I then washed it, blocked it, added my KarebearKnitwear tag on, and yeah, it's ready to be gifted. Because I bought this yarn in bulk, that means there were, I think, 300 grams of yarn. I knew I would not just make the sweater, I would make extra items with it. So let me show you what I added to this sweater. So I knitted this basic beanie by Emily, and I have made this basic beanie so many times. It's just a perfect classic knit, and I think Emily's pattern goes from baby or child all the way up to adult. She sometimes has a pom-pom on top. I didn't want to do that. She also gives you the option to do a tiny brim or a folded cuff on the hat. Calls for DK weight yarn. She uses a US 6 or 4mm needle, and that's exactly what I used. So I used the same cotton acrylic yarn. I used a 4mm needle, and this took me 38 grams of yarn. By the way, I did not mention this panda. I did not put on in Intarsia. I duplicate stitch the panda on after the sweater was complete because I think it's like a 12 by 12 rows, 12 stitches wide at the max. And I did the same with the hat. It's something that I duplicate stitch after I knit. So with the hat, it starts bottom up construction. It's a knit one, purl one ribbing. I went for the longer rib so that it could be folded. Once I finished the ribbing size that I wanted for this, I think I made the child size or the toddler size. And then you go into the body, and the body is just plain knit. I knit in the round. I used circular needles, and then when needed, I switched to DPN. So it's really a quick, simple knit. And then when you get to the length of the body of the hat, you then switch to the crown decreases, and the crown decreases a number of times throughout, and you then continue to decrease every other round till you get to the very top with a few stitches left. You pull those through with a darning needle and sew in the ends. After I sewed in the ends, I washed it, I blocked it, I added my Care Bear tag. Before I wash and block, I added the Panda duplicate stitch. So that is the basic beanie by Emily. It is a free pattern that you can pick up on Ravelry, and yeah, a nice little addition to this panda set. And I still had yarn left over, so let me show you what else I added. These are the world's simplest mittens, and they sure are the world's simplest. They are by Tin Can Knits, and they are from baby size all the way up to adult size. And you can use a fingering weight, DK weight, worsted, and chunky. And this pattern is so well laid out. It's amazing. Um, yeah, it is definitely the world's simplest. So I followed the pattern for DK weight yarn because I was still using this cotton acrylic yarn. It called for US 3 and US 5, which is 3.25 and 3.75. Now, I don't have all those needles, so I just used a 3.5 millimeter. Started here, used 3.5 here, used 3.5 through the body, and I used 3.5 on the thumb. And it took 24 grams plus I did the I-cord, and that in total was 24 grams of yarn. So these I did what the toddler size. It's a cuff up construction. You start with a knit one, purl one cuff, and you can do the cuff longer if you want. I just left it at that length. So it's just a very simple cast on, simple cuff, and then it moves into the body. You do a number of rounds. For these, I don't use magic loop. I just use DPNs. And then when I get to the point where you're working with thumb, you're doing gradual increases for the thumb gusset. And once you get up to the point, this point, you put the thumb on hold and you continue with the body of the mitten up until the very top tip where you begin to decrease for the fingering area. And at that point, you're decreasing at both the right and the left, in the front as well as in the back. And when you get to a number of stitches left, you use your darning needle to pull it through, and then you sew in those ends. You go back to pick up for the thumb. The thumb is knit again in the round. You do a number of rounds, and then you reduce the number of stitches, and you pull the remaining stitches through using a darning needle. Then I pick up for the I-cord. I know this family, this little one goes to daycare. They want the I-cord so that he doesn't lose his mittens. So I put the I-cord on. The way I put it on too, if the parents choose that they don't want it, they just have to cut it. And then the rest will just pull through. But I use 3 stitches on that I-cord. I cast on right at the end of the mitten, and I just continue on for this little one. I think I did 22 inches for the I-cord, and then I attach it to the other side, the other mitten, and sew in the ends. Then I went back and put the little panda motif with duplicate stitch on the mittens. And with this panda motif, I think I used 2 grams of white and 1 gram of black. And I've been using the Estelle DK Spark. I have a lot of that yarn, and so I use that throughout all of the panda motifs in this set. So that was the sweater, the hat, the mittens. I still had a little bit of yarn left over, and I decided to put one more item into this gift set. And I decided on this simple cowl by Carina B. I've made this before for one of the toddlers, and one of the mamas had suggested that I do this, and I thought, well, what a great idea, because they lose their scarves too. So I decided, yeah, okay, I could do this. It's pretty simple. It was an easy knit. It calls for DK weight yarn to use a US 2.5 and a US 6, which is a 3 millimeter and 4 millimeter. This pattern is a free pattern, and it has 2 sizes, 1 to 3, and then ages 4 to 6. I did the 1 to 3-year-old, and I just going to tell you how many grams of yarn. So yeah, with the DK weight yarn, this took 42 grams of yarn, and I used a 3mm and a 4mm on the body. And let me tell you about the construction. Pretty simple, easy knit. You start from it's a top-down construction, so you're starting at the top here. You cast on a number of stitches, and it's a knit one, purl one, for a number of inches to give you that folded turtleneck. If you didn't want the turtleneck, you could do it a lot shorter, but I decided to go with the turtleneck so they could use it or not, they could keep it upright. Then when you get to the end of the ribbing, you switch to 4mm needles, and you do set up for the raglan on the right and the left for the shoulders. And you're doing those raglan increases, which are make one right, make one left at the raglan section. So you do a number of raglan increases and continuing to work in the round. And once you've finished the raglan increases, you knit some short rows on the back in the front, making the body between the left and the right shoulder a little bit longer than the shoulder edges. And it's pretty easy with the short rows. They're the same for the back and the front, but there's no increasing or short rows into the shoulders, which makes sense because you want to make it longer in the chest and down the back. Then when you finished with the body and the short rows, I think there was a couple more rounds that you had to do, and then it goes into that garter stitch finish and cast off. I put the motif on for the panda, and with duplicate stitch. I also washed and blocked it and added my KarebearKnitwear tag there. And yeah, that's the simple cowl by Carina B. And that is the panda set with the sweater, the hat, the mittens, and this little cowl. I think I used almost 300. I still have a little bit of yarn left, which is fine, but at least I have a beautiful gift to share with them for the holidays. So if you're looking to make some cute animal items, take a look at the panda pattern. And thanks for listening.